Hello and welcome back to another GameCreator tutorial. Today we're going to go over the basic settings of objects, modules, and how to prototype objects. So with that said, let's get started. Alright, so first off, if we click on an object that we place in the scene, we can see that there is a basic setting tab. So this is going to come with a few things. First, it's going to show what the prototype is. Now we're going to get into this later, but this is going to show exactly what type of an object this is. The next thing we can do is we can reposition it. Now you can grab the X right here and reposition it, just similar to like Unity. You can click on this and it will take you to this area. You can then position on the grid. So grid movement, positioning. And then also you have a layer option right here. So you have middle, bottom, and frontmost layer. Now, if everything is in the middle layer, like we can see that the player character is middle layer and this object is also middle layer, that means that they will auto Y sort. So if I bring this over here, you can see that they auto Y sort depending on if it's in front or behind the character. So now if we take this object right here and we say that it is a bottom display, we can see that they will no longer auto Y sort and that the character that's in the middle display will be over it. So that is one important thing to understand, is that there are 3 layers within this object layer. So next up is some various avatar settings. We can have autoplay, which is going to mean that it's going to automatically play the action. So if we had this on a walking animation, we can see with autoplay selected, it will be walking. Now if we unselected that, then the character is not walking, it's just paused in the first frame. And then so you can get some other options like sizing. You can resize the character. You can also input for easier positioning. You can change the opacity of the character. You can change the hue. And you can change the FPS of the animation. So now if we click off of this so that the player is always walking, we can adjust the FPS of that animation. So we can make it, I think this will make it slower. And this will make it really fast. All right, so I think around 8 was good. And so now if we keep going down the list, now we have some common attributes. Now these are assigned to the prototype and it's going to be really awesome. Basically, this is one of those things that you guys can just search through all the list. It would just take too much time to go over, but you can go through objects. There's a bridge functionality, fixed orientation, so they're only facing one way, and all this other stuff. You can also adjust the move speed, and then you can also add default behavior. So if this is an NPC, we can say move, let's go down. So move down, down, and then let's move up, up. And we'll say loop. We'll also provide a wait of 60 frames when he's done moving up before he moves back down. And we can actually playtest this. And I guess it won't loop, but now we can hit OK here and hit playtest right here. And the default behavior will be doing this, and it should be looping every second. Yeah, so really convenient way of setting up NPC walk patterns. All right, so now let's get to some cool stuff. Let's add some modules. So there are 3 default modules that come with the program. You have shadow, avatar materials, which are kind of like almost shaders, and then you have animation. So if we click on the shadow, for instance, and then we scroll down here, we can see that it provided this character a shadow, and we can actually size it however we want. I'll just leave it at the default 30, and then we can size the height as well. And we can adjust the alpha. I think it was 0.5. And yeah, so there are some other options here. If we add module here, we can go to avatar material. And like I was saying, this is more like a shader. You can add certain things like hue change, foggy, outer glow, just a normal glow. This is kind of cool. If you click on this and you can adjust the settings here. So, and you can just make the glow to whatever you need. You can multiply it, make the glow really nice. Now if you play test, you can see that this character just looks a little different than the default sprite with that glow. Now the important thing to understand is that all of these options that you set in the basic settings and even the modules that you add, they're only in the page 1. They're not going to be in the page 2. So these are per event page setups right here. Now that is where prototyping comes in. For instance, let's go to this first page here and let's remove all of these options that I had. So we will remove the module, we will remove this module, the shadow, and we'll just leave this as it is. We can now go over here to the actual scene objects area, and these are where you have some preset object functions. So for instance, we can see that this object is prototype character. So we can see that every object with this character is going to inherit certain settings. We can right click this and click edit, and we can actually start to edit these settings. The first settings that we can see right away are the configuration. So this is where you can limit what kind of events it can actually do. So you can make it to where it has no appear conditions. You can have it have no click events, no touch events, no parallel events, no appear events, no leave events. So this is very interesting because you can actually start to make your objects more performant if you need to. So say you just have a rock and all it is just a rock. You don't need click, touch, parallel, appear, or leave. You could just click them all off. You just need collision, basically. With a character, it makes sense to have all of these, of course. So the next setting let's look at is pre-install modules. Click on the add. We can actually add the shadow. And what this is going to do is every object that inherits from character is going to have a shadow. So if we click OK, nothing will happen actually, because we actually have to do one more thing. We have to say reset all objects of this module prototype. When we hit OK, it's going to say that you're going to replace some default behavior with current objects. We're just going to say OK because it's nothing game breaking for this project. Then we can scroll down. We can see that the shadow module is already added, not only on page 1, but now it's added on page 2. And not only on this object, but also on all objects, even the character, if we can playtest. Here, you can see this, and there we go. All right, so let's head back into the character prototype, and let's go to the comment tab here, and now we can start to add and edit attribute lists. So right here on every object is the common attributes. We can actually add, remove, and change these attributes. So let's start looking at the ones that are already by default. We have one called fix ori. So if we click on this, it's the fixed orientation. You can see that the component is a checkbox. We can make them read only or all these different kind of options. It's really, really cool. What kind of a data type it is, it's a Boolean. We can also give specific conditions for this variable. And now you can even add your own. So if you go up here, unnamed number, we can go to attribute here. We can name it. We can just call this has this property, or actually we'll just name it normal. Has this property. We can say what kind of a thing it is. Let's just say it is let's go to object here. So now we determine what do we want to do. Do we want it to be a checkbox, a slider, some kind of behavior thing? So we can click on the component here and we can choose a value slider. And then you can set it further with some min values, max values, how you want it to scale, kind of like this opacity, how it's 0 to 1 kind of a thing. I'm just going to leave these as default, but there's just so many different options here. We can even give it a default value. So we'll just say, 1. And then you can make it, array mode, all these different kind of options here. You can set the description, and we're just going to say amount of this var. I'm going to hit OK. And one thing I just realized is that it is unnamed because this is the variable name like it would be in the script editor. So we actually can't have spaces. So we'll say this var. Now there's one more thing. In order to get this property, it can't be an object here. So it has to be a number variable. That's what we're going to change it to. And so we're going to say OK. Click OK again. And now we can see that this object has a new attribute called this var. We can now set it however we want. And we can click on this object and it also has this property. And also so does the player because it is a prototype of a character. Now the player object is the only one that you can actually change the prototype of. The other objects, they're set once you set them on here. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful. There was a lot covered here, but to be honest, they all go together. And so I needed this to be one video. If you have any questions, leave comments. Steam forum, Discord will get you figured out. And with that said, I will see you at the next video.